We are back on Taking Care of Business on Current Radio, News Talk 1180 for the best in Saturday Talk Radio, Wednesday Talk Radio, and now in New Mexico on 1000 KKIM. My guest by phone is a gentleman that I really, really admire, Bruce Herschensohn, former senatorial candidate, author, and commentator, and he worked in the Reagan administration once upon a time. Bruce, what did you do in the Reagan administration?
Not as much as you might think. I was on the transition team and dealt with them a great deal. I was doing commentaries here in the United States. I was with KABC. So what I was doing, I took a leave of absence when I was asked to be on the transition team, and then a lot of communication. I knew President Reagan. I knew him before he was governor. I mean, we both live in the same state, and he was a very easy guy to know. And so it was all the way through his administration. There was a lot of communications, and he was just terrific to me at all times. And the one who I was closest to in terms of being physically at the White House during the administration was President Nixon.
Oh, okay.
And that was obviously that was a lot. That was longer ago than President Reagan. So it was really those two presidents that I was most affiliated with.
I have to tell you a little Richard Nixon story.
Sure.
I used to have an office in the old Hamburger Hamlet building in Sherman Oaks on Van Nuys and Ventura. In fact, I used to watch you on KABC every night, your commentary.
Great.
But when I was in the Marines, I was stationed at El Toro for a while, and President Nixon used to fly in there on Air Force One.
Yes.
And then take Marine One to fly over to San Clemente.
Yes.
Well, at the Reagan Museum, they have that plane and that Marine One. Those are the two that are at the Reagan Museum.
Well, really cool. Well, the helicopter, I think you're going to find, is at Nixon Museum.
Oh, well.
The Air Force One is for sure at the Reagan Museum. And what was called at that time Marine One, is at the Nixon Museum.
Okay.
In the library, right.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong, but I remember talking to a guy there. Could be. But, it was fascinating because, I remember watching him fly in.
Of course.
And, I was working on a hangar over there and watching him fly in and going, oh, my God, that's the President of the United States.
Yeah, that's
a long time ago. Anyways, we were talking a little bit about the chemical weapons situation. If, like you were saying, Hezbollah has all these missiles stockpiled,
yep.
And they just shoot them randomly. There's no, I don't know how bad the directional system is, but they just
targeting is god awful.
Yeah, it goes
Thank
anywhere.
Goodness.
So thank goodness is right. But at some point, if Syria decides to use chemical weapons and Hezbollah gets their hands on those, I don't think Israel is going to have any option because there's no way they can let Hezbollah have chemical weapons.
You're right. You're absolutely right. There are no options after a while. It just depends on where these red lines are drawn for any number of possible circumstances.
Well, and what happens is Israel gets marked as the aggressor, and
sure does.
which is incredible. I mean, here it is. They've had these missiles shot at them daily for the last God knows how long, and they decided to defend themselves, and they're the aggressor.
That's the way that it's done among the international members. I should be more precise. That's the way that it's done by the UN.
Mm-hmm.
Since the war, this latest war that I'm talking about, the very next day after the ceasefire, Morsi made an agreement for the ceasefire, and the next day it was put on the floor of the UN regarding giving the Palestinian Authority non-member observer state. And I'm emphasizing the word state because they've been an observer since the days of Yasser Arafat, when it was the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization. They've been they can't vote as an observer, but now it has the authority of the word state given to it. Mm-hmm. That's really what they wanted, because they want, obviously, in short time, to become a member that can vote. And their reasoning will be, we've already been named a state by this very organization.
Sure, it makes them legitimate.
And they'll probably get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes them legitimate.
Only 9 people voted on 9 nations voted on our side.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Our guest by phone, former senatorial candidate, author, commentator, Bruce Herschensohn. Yeah, it's just amazing. So they're becoming legitimate, and Israel more and more is becoming illegitimate when they defend themselves.
Yes.
So, with this vote, for the Palestine Authority, I mean, what does that do for Israel?
It puts them in the lower international position. You suddenly have so many nations that were for Israel in years past that now voted for this measure, for the Palestinian Authority, rather than what Israel wanted. And it also gave any number of nations voted to abstain, which is like saying we're against Israel. Mm-hmm. And so they have 9 nations, and really only 3 of them are really of real significance. It's the U.S. themselves and the Czech Republic and Panama, 4 nations.
Right.
The others were island nations in the Pacific. Mm-hmm. Nauru and Micronesia.
It's funny, Bruce. I can feel my blood starting to boil a little bit in this conversation.
Yeah, I feel that way quite often. Quite often, and it is just what bothers me particularly about that is that it was in 1967 it won a war that it didn't want, but it won it. And when you win a war, you win a war. And we've never said to North Vietnam, look, you didn't win. Go back to the lines that you had in 1975. Mm-hmm. And instead, we've given them diplomatic relations. We recognize the country as the Socialist Republic of Vietnam with its capital in Hanoi. We have trade relations with Israel. After winning the war, we say you can't build anything in the area that you won. Mm-hmm. You can't build settlements. What do you mean you can't build settlements? What is that? Could the North Vietnamese build settlements in Saigon? They already have.
Right, yeah.
I mean, the whole thing just doesn't... And one is a friend and one is a foe. We always treat the foe better than the friend.
Reminds me of that movie in the 60s with Peter Ustinov, The Mouse That Roared.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In that same region, talking about Iran, I almost get the feeling Iran is laughing at us because,
of course, it is.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Neville Chamberlain and Hitler in the late 1930s when Chamberlain kept on coming back saying, "Hey, I brought us peace for our time,"
you bet.
And that's what we're getting. And all the while, Iran is just building the bomb.
Yep, signed a document with Hitler in Munich, and oh boy, what a terrific thing.
Yeah.
Great Britain's excluded from any advancement that the Nazis may have, and what a bunch of bunk that was.
Yeah, and we're doing the same thing.
Of course we
now.
Are.
Exactly the same thing.
Of course we are.
What do you think ultimately is going to happen? Do you think ultimately Israel is going to be the one that's going to try to solve that problem? I mean, the UN isn't doing anything.
I don't think that there's any other possibility with President Obama in the White House. I did think that it was entirely possible that that it would be the United States and then other allies, but it would be after January the 20th. But that is not the way it's going to be.
His Romney's Middle East expert was Walid Phares, who we've had on the show a couple times, and I think he would have been fantastic in that role, and I think he would have had a major influence on a President Romney. But unfortunately, that's not what we're dealing with today.
No, it isn't. So, in answer to your question, I don't think that Israel really has much of a choice. I think what it's looking at more than anything else is there are a number of calendars of months and what circle is going to be placed around what date.
Yeah, I totally agree. When we come back from the break, there's a subject I know you and I want to talk about, one that's dear to both of us, and Benghazi.
Very much so.
Yep. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Current Radio, News Talk, 1180.